Do you truly think the SCOTUS' patience is wearing thin with these rogue judges, if for no other reason than making them do so much extra work? I think it is. I covered a SCOTUS decision from yesterday where Kavanaugh, part of the majority, but he added his own comments as a concurrence, saying, hey, Supreme Court, talking publicly, and obviously he's had this conversation in private. Right now he's saying, listen, this is what I've been saying in private, and now I'm saying it publicly. So the whole world knows I'm saying it. I'm telling the Supreme Court, we have to stop limiting ourselves to staying these lawless injunctions by these unelected black robe tyrannical inferior district trial court judges. We have to stop simply stopping them in a case-by-case basis and start seizing authority over the entire case. Take the case away from these lawless judges and make our own rulings. Because otherwise, these legal jackasses just keep ending back up in front of us, playing their ridiculous games. And we'll see some of those games today. That's why the White House is back at the Supreme Court, because these lower federal courts are playing these games again. So Kavanaugh is clearly fed up with this nonsense. It's like if your kid is caught sneaking his hand in a jar full of Oreo cookies, and he's not allowed to do that, and you chastise him, and then the next day you catch him with his hand in a jar of chocolate chip cookies, and you're like, didn't we just have this conversation yesterday? And he goes, well, these aren't Oreos, these are chocolate chips. And you're like, don't play with me. You know damn well the rule is you can't have cookies from the jar without asking permission. He goes, oh, okay. And the next day you catch him with his hand in the jar, and this time it's a bunch of graham crackers. And he goes, well, these aren't cookies, Mom. That's the kind of games. When our nation is at stake, those are the kinds of petty, childish, seditious games that our unelected black robe tyrannical inferior federal district trial court judges are playing with our constitutional order. Kavanaugh's done with it. But of course, he needs another 4 justices to all agree. By the way, I happened to see in the news today, let me see if I can pull it up real quick, a headline of Justice Elena, never been married, never had kids, Kagan, is at a conference. And she's speaking critically of the Supreme Court. Here's one take on it. I found this take particularly interesting. Let me pull this over for everybody. I'm not going to read the article. I'm just going to pull up the headline. It's from that. Of course, it has it has an ad, of course. But let me see if I can focus in on the headline. Can we all see this? Elena Kagan, says the majority should explain. So recently, the last couple weeks, the Supreme Court, by the way, every time Trump gets to the Supreme Court, he wins. Every time. Contrary to the will and the arguments of these lower courts. But the last couple of weeks, they've been issuing wins for Trump simply by saying, all right, we hear the arguments, Trump wins. Next, Trump wins. Next, Trump wins. Next. And they're not doing lengthy explanations. The majority's not. So the majority is saying, usually by 6-3, 7-2, the majority is saying, all right, well, in this case, Trump wins. Trump wins. Trump wins. Trump wins. Trump wins. And then Justice Sonia, Wise Latina, DEI, Sotomayor, writes an 18-page dissent, which of course carries no precedential value. The dissent is the losing side of the Supreme Court. Sotomayor writes an 18-page dissent, or Supreme Court Justice Ketanji, I'm not a biologist, how would I know what a woman is? Jackson writes an 18-page dissent, and then Elena Kagan joins those other 2 throughs in the dissent. That's how we get these 6-3 decisions. And Elena Kagan is saying, wait a minute, The majority is simply saying Trump wins, Trump wins, Trump wins, but they're not providing a detailed explanation for why Trump wins. We're providing a detailed package of estrogenic hysteria in our dissents. Why do they only get to write one sentence and we have to write 20 pages? Well, you don't have to write the 20 pages. Justice Kagan, do us all a favor. We're tired of reading your trash. I am. But here's the interesting part. In the decision we're going to look at today, the Supreme Court did provide an explanation for why Trump won. And you know what the lower court did? It pretended the explanation had never been provided. It just ignored it. So what was the purpose of that? If the majority decision in the Supreme Court is going to provide an explanation, this is why Trump wins. That's, by the way, supposed to be guidance for these lower courts to follow in similar cases moving forward. This is how we want you to make these decisions, is what the Supreme Court is saying when it provides this guidance. If the lower courts are just going to ignore it, why should the Supreme Court bother? And by the way, when the Supreme Court provides that guidance and the lower court doesn't do it, this is not a child with his hand in a cookie jar. This is a federal judge. If he can't follow simple direction from his bosses on the Supreme Court, what would happen to you if that were you in that job, engaged in that kind of insubordinate conduct? You think you'd keep your job? Thanks for watching this highlight segment of our full-length Law of Self-Defense live stream. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to give us a like and subscribe for more expert analysis on politics, law, and how to be hard to convict. And to watch the full-length episode of this show, just click right here. Stay safe.